Hi guys, welcome back to Single Arab Female. I'm your host, Reed Saeed. Why do you keep laughing at me? This is my very giggly, bubbly, fun friend, Rula Othman. Rula, how do you say your name in English? How do people butcher it? Tell me.
Rula.
Rula Othman?
Yeah.
Oof, that sucks.
Why?
I thought mine was bad.
Why is that? What is that?
Reed Saeed. Reed Saeed. This is so much more beautiful in Arabic.
Definitely way more beautiful.
Yeah, I think so too. Rula, how do we know each other?
So we met about 5 years ago through the same sorority that we're both in. It's an Arab sorority. So I started at UCLA and Reed was very monumental in starting it at UC Davis, which was our first leg of expansion. So that's how we met initially, and we just have gotten really close. So Reed is one of my closest friends, but the most interesting thing about our relationship is we've never lived in the same city.
Which I think makes our relationship even stronger. That we
I
can
agree.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like when you're kind of in a long distance relationship, it's
true.
And you're able to maintain communication, that says a lot. But I think if we were in the same city, we'd probably I don't know, I wonder if we'd get annoyed of each other or not. Possible.
I get annoyed of myself, when I sit with myself for too long, so probably.
It's possible.
What does your name mean in Arabic? What does Rula mean?
So I don't know exactly what it means. One time I tried Googling it and
Did you ask your parents?
Yeah, my mom doesn't know. She just said she found it in a book, and I was like, "What book?" And she's like, "I don't know, a book of baby names." So I don't know what book of Arab baby names is out there, but I tried Googling it once, and I got two things. The first thing I got was measurements for this random building in Spain, and then the second thing I got was there was this Turkish tribe back in the day that was what they were called. And they were known for their courage, so I guess it's associated with courage, which makes no sense because
I think makes a lot of sense for you. You are very courageous.
I feel like I'm terrified of everything though.
Are you joking? So Rula actually paved the way for a great deal of my personal relationships and my own personal growth as an Arab woman, because you did something kind of scary and kind of outlandish and out there, and you started an Arab sorority. Who would have thunk it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things that it's such a simple idea that I was surprised that it wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, you just kind of plant the seed, you don't really expect much out of it, and then it just continued to grow. And we're continuing to expand. We have a waiting list of about 16 to 20 schools that are interested in expanding, but we really want to just strengthen our foundation before we kind of open the door to supporting more chapters.
Yeah, small but mighty for sure. But before we start digging about EAS and the impact that it's had on you and our community, I want to talk a little bit more about your background, where you come from.
Okay.
So where are you from, or where's your family from? And tell me a little bit about growing up within your culture and this community.
So my background, I'm Palestinian. My dad grew up in Jerusalem. My mom is also Palestinian, but she grew up in Jordan, in Amman. And I grew up in Moore Park, California, which is about an hour outside of LA. I think most of my mom's family also is in Moore Park. So I think growing up, I grew up in a very, very conservative family, and I also grew up very kind of confused,
Sheltered?
very, very
Confused,
sheltered,
yeah.
very confused in terms of who I am and how do I balance everything, because I think I grew up in that typical super conservative, judgmental community where you see all these girls that are almost living this double life, and they don't know how to express the needs that they have in both sides of their identity, both Arab and American. So I think I grew up very kind of unaware of the diversity out there. I grew up very ignorant of the rest of the Arab world. I grew up very shy and quiet and very unexposed to anything out there. So I think, and also I did spend part of my youth living in Jordan too, because my mom wanted us to learn our culture. So when I came back here for high school, and that was another mini culture shock that was a little bit odd. So I would definitely say I grew up very feeling out of place, especially when I came here. I grew up very, very insecure about my identity. I had that classic
You're trying to balance these two parts of yourself.
Yeah, and the standards of beauty, I think, were not on our side early on, which is really weird.
They are now.
They definitely are now. Like, everyone loves us now, but I think, like, in middle school, high school, like, standards of beauty were not on your side, so I think that also, like, added to the insecurity. And also, our culture is very, like, and I think that's something that our generation is changing, but our culture is very, they pick at you and they criticize you, but deep down they feel like it's okay because I want you to be the best. So this is like, I'm saying these things out of love, but really it could be detrimental to your
tough love.
Yeah, but it could be detrimental to your mental health. So you grow up like feeling very low, but like actually you're very attractive. So yeah.
So did this clash of cultures and this upbringing that you had, is that what inspired you to then start the Empowered Arab Sisterhood?
Yeah, it was part of it.
So what was the premise behind it?
So it's a bunch of things, but that is part of going into it because I wanted to create a space that wasn't that stereotypical judgmental space where people are afraid of expressing themselves because they're afraid of being judged or afraid of like not aligning 100% with the culture.
Right.
So I think a part of it was like, you know, creating that space where, you know, the most liberal person and the most like conservative person could be in the same space, feel totally comfortable expressing everything about themselves, not feel like they have to hide any sort of aspect of their identity, and just kind of they're able to like thrive and grow together and learn together, like how do I balance my two identities, and also how do I, because I see a lot of girls, they come to college and they kind of just shut out of the Arab side of their identity, you know, and they just like, they're like, I'm away from home, I don't have to be kind of tied down to the culture, like I'm just going to disassociate and I'm just like going to focus on my American side now. And I think that's really sad because there are a lot of beautiful aspects of our culture that get overshadowed by all the negative parts. So we do have an issue where there's like judgmental issues. We do have an issue where like a lot of criticism and like gossip and, you know, this like competition to be the best. And I think that's part of the reason why our communities are not as successful as they can be, because rather than kind of really
lifting each other up, building connections professionally, it's all about, no, I want to keep that for myself because I want to be the best. So it's a lot of just tearing people down, and I think we're the generation that's gonna change that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I was in a regular sorority, and I did what you called, you know, shut down my identity.
Arab side,
and I did that. Oof, sorry. Adjusting. I did that, I think I want to say all throughout middle school and high school. I was sort of like stuck in between these like two worlds, and I didn't have any guide. I didn't have an older sister or older sibling to kind of show me the way. I think, you know, everything was an experiment for me because I'm the oldest, and you can probably relate to that because you're the oldest 100%. As well. And so everything that I did was very new to my parents, and every experience that I had, like homecoming and prom and like this strange like intermixing of the sexes in high school and in middle school, like all really of it was new.
Just like fun fact, my prom date was my cousin who's a girl. So just I was the first child too, and it's like they don't know what prom is, they don't know what dances are.
It's not
like,
a thing.
They think it's like haram, like what I'm doing. So I like the only way I was allowed to go is if I took my cousin as my date, who didn't even go to my school, and she was a girl. And so just fun fact, like life as an Arab woman in American high school.
It's hard, and it's hilarious because I see my sisters now go through the same motions as I did, and everything is so much easier for them because I went through the hard parts, and they can now get away with murder, like it's not even funny. But going back to EAS and sort of our relationship as well is, I shut down that Arab part of myself for so long. I went to college. I joined a regular, quote unquote, regular sorority. And I just felt like I had nothing to relate to with these women. And that's not to say that I haven't had very healthy and positive relationships with people outside of my culture. Absolutely not. That's not the case. I have a lot of successful relationships with people outside of my culture and people that I am incredibly close to. But what I was missing was I felt like I was going too much on the deep end of like being someone that I wasn't. And I was shutting down this really important part of myself. And And when I discovered EAS, it was almost like having permission to be like who I was, in a sense. It was almost like having permission to like say that someone recognizes that we need a space for our community on college campuses, and B, that like you're not by yourself. Like all of these cumulative experiences that you had growing up, they're not specific to you. They're not individual to you. They are very much a collective, and we should come together and talk about it and lean on each other and have this community. And so it was kind of like such a relief for me when we started EAS, and some of my closest girlfriends come from this organization. So thanks, Lulu.
Anytime.
You were a transfer student to UCLA.
Yeah, I transferred into UCLA. I think I after high school just wasn't ready to leave. But yeah, I transferred in. I looked into starting it kind of like my first year as a transfer. So that was definitely
very quickly.
Yeah, I did it very quickly. But I think that just is also about the reason why. So I think people always say like, oh wow, like you started this org, like how did you do it? And I really feel like I planted the seed, but I'm not the one who kind of expanded it into what it is today. I think I was lucky enough, and honestly like shocked a little bit too, that like, you know, I had this idea. I went to the Greek office with this idea, and they told me like, here's what you have to do. And so I set the wheels in motion, but then I would have meetings and all these people would show up, and I was a bit like shocked. I was like, okay. So it was just kind of building off of that.
It was like validation for you that this was like definitely the right step.
Yeah, I feel like the validation definitely helped my like passion and motivation to like keep going. And then also I think we've been so lucky and so blessed because we keep getting these additions of people that like with each new wave of people, they just make it so much better. And I think that's why like we've only been around for like 7 years now, but I think where people are very impressed with the level at which of like how official we are and how organized we are and how great and everything.
Organization is very hard for Arabs.
Yeah. And how our protocols are all in place. So I think it's like, okay, I planted the seed, but I think the fertilizer and the water and like the nurturing, like I've gotten so many amazing I've gotten so many amazing people join the organization to like build it and make it what it is today, because like I don't know, everyone brings something new, a new level of organization, and I think it's like it's great, but at the same time it's very sad that it's like people don't expect that from the Arab community. Like we're, as a community, like we need to do better about like being organized, being professional, having like, you know, putting things out there that aren't just
haphazardly thrown together in a sense, right?
Exactly. So it's like, it's great. It's like a great compliment, but it's also sad that people are so surprised. So yeah,
I get it. How is EAS sort of different than other sororities? Like what makes us so special in a sense?
I think we're so special because I don't want to say it's a more genuine space because I can't like judge anyone else's spaces, but I think that we put such a heavy emphasis on like, it's all about being yourself, and it's all about every member has the responsibility to make sure everyone else feels comfortable to be themselves. So I think we focus a lot of our teachings around like communication to enable that, and we stress the importance of inclusivity, the importance of embracing diversity, the importance of like learning from your sisters about their backgrounds. So I think that's one thing. Like for me, I think I came out of the organization as like with amazing communication skills that I think have really helped me in my professional career, that I've noticed like a lot of other people my age, 10 years older than me, 20 years older than me, don't really like have that. And I know for sure that I got that from EAS. And then also just like this in-depth knowledge of the world. Like I think I was this super sheltered girl that had never been exposed to anything, and I came out of it like knowing about, you know, every corner of the world and all of the issues going on, and just kind of different points of view, both social, political, like religious. I learned even new religion. Like I never knew there was like Druze.
Yeah, like, Druze was totally
it was like a new thing.
Well,
So it's like you learn about kind of like all the different groups of people out there.
Absolutely.
And experiences.
Absolutely. And I think one big thing is that we're united by culture.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing. And one thing that EAS stresses is that, regardless of your political affiliations or your religion or your background, we're united by this idea of culture, which I think a lot of other cultures tend to do much better than us, where they unite by the idea of having a singular culture that they can look to, and stressing the importance of like coming together due to our like one really big, strong relationship to one another through our cultures is so important. So exciting and so needed for a group of girls and people who have had to deal with and learn to grow up in these two very different cultures, for sure.
I think it's also about bringing together different cultures within the Arab world. So dismantling those like stigmas between, because I think we have an issue with like internal racism. That's definitely an issue the Arab culture has, and just internal like stereotyping, which isn't always necessarily like the same as racism, but I think it's also about if you're growing up in the same, like for example, me, I'm Palestinian and I'm Muslim. So I grew up in a community of all Palestinian Muslims, 95% of which are related to me. So it's like, you're not really exposed
You've met friends of mine who are Palestinian who you realize you're actually related to.
Yeah.
Like that have no relation to one another, like very different places, and you realize that you're related to them.
Yeah, so it's like you grow up being surrounded by the same demographic of like person, and then I feel like I came to EAS and I was just kind of exposed to all these other communities, and it's such a beautiful thing because you're learning to pull all the positive things from the different communities. So that's like when I grow up and I'm like, like I have my own family and all my like groups of friends, and we're developing our own like little community to like do things with. I think we'll be able to kind of do away with all the negative aspects, and we're learning from all these different communities, so we're able to pull all those positive things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
How did EAS sort of like fill a void for you? Like what is the space solving for?
Well, I think it's different for every person. I think for me, I learned a lot from EAS, but I think the one thing that I didn't get, and I think that's because I never got, like, I created EAS, so I never got the EAS experience.
Really?
Yeah, I feel that sometimes, because it's like I created EAS, so I never got to see what it's like coming in and going through recruitment and going through all of those activities and being on the receiving end. So I hear people's feedback, but I never feel like I kind of got that like awakening. I think for me, it just like opened my eyes to doing away with the...
When you put a bunch of Arab girls together in a room,
oh God,
you don't really get much done. And so I'm curious how you were able to crack the whip when it came to getting organized for EAS.
I think the really important thing is you never tell people the right time of an event. You always tell them that it actually starts an hour before the start time, so that they're on time, or at least like not like less than 15 minutes late. So I think that's like a huge thing.
Yeah, so you tell everybody
and
a different start time.
Yeah, and I think also just constantly reminding them the point of the organization. I think people start to feel bad. So you're guilt tripping them. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that's the only thing that works. And then also some chapters use fines. So my chapter started instituting fines because I was over it. I was so done with girls being late, with girls not showing up to events, with girls kind of last minute pulling out of things. And I was like, no, like how does a 100-person sorority get girls to a single place on time, with all of their prerequisites done, and we can't get like 20 girls to do that? I think it's also about like reminding people, that it is like a form of disrespect. So I always try to like reinforce that, your time is just as valuable as everyone else's. So when you're late and I'm on time to something, you're telling me that you don't really respect me or my time, and that's like offensive.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also a huge thing that I reinforce constantly, because for me, it's just rude, and I feel like anyone, that just says a lot about your friendship if someone doesn't respect you or your time.
Right.
Okay.
Why was it so important for you to call it the Empowered Arab Sisterhood? Why did you have to have the name Empowered in the name of the sorority? Which, by the way, translates to Epsilon, Alpha, Sigma in Greek letters. So that worked that way.
Yeah. So I think it was very important because a large part of our organization is about dismantling stereotypes. And one large stereotype of the, Arab woman is that she is this kind of dependent, like helpless person who's very, I'm trying to think of the word and it's like escaping me, but oppressed. That's the word that's often associated with the Arab woman, oppressed. And I think that a lot of people kind of have this kind of notion in their mind about what an Arab woman is. And I feel like Empowered really emulates, the diversity in our space, in that that we have a lot of really great leaders in the Arab female population and Arab American, and I think that we come from all these different sectors in the professional aspect of our lives, and we're all accomplishing so many amazing things, and we're all very independent. So I think it kind of goes with the image that we want to replace that stereotype with. So I think that's really where Empowered came from. It's really meant to highlight and celebrate the diversity of the power of our kind of culture and our population of Arab women, because we're strong and we are empowered.
I want to ask you a question that has nothing to do with EAS, and it's probably one of my favorite questions to ask people.
Yeah.
What was that one moment growing up where you realized that you weren't from here? What interaction did you have with someone that kind of made you feel really foreign?
Well, I think it was so before I had moved to Jordan, and I was kind of here for preschool and elementary school, and I think it was honestly my lunches. The lunches I would bring that my mom would pack me, people were so confused by them. And actually my brother had an experience where his teacher literally took his lunch away and then called my mom and accused her of she said, "You can't send your kid to school with bird food," and it was a za'atar sandwich. So she made the huge, and of course my mom was furious, and of course, so I think it was honestly, and I think a lot of Arab Americans identified with this too.
Your brother? Your brother's younger.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
this is not too long ago.
No, it's actually very recent. So my brother is 15 now. I'm 27, and he when he was in, I think it was elementary school, they accused my mom of feeding my brother bird food, but it was a za'atar sandwich. And za'atar is very popular now. All the vegans at freaking Whole Foods are oh my god, za'atar crusted upsatu, So it's I don't know. So it's it's interesting, but I think that, and I think also, and I don't want to go back to the standards of beauty thing, but I think also I grew up in a very white suburb where
of LA.
Of Moore Park.
Yeah.
So I lived in Moore Park, which is an hour outside of it. So it's beautiful was the skinny white girl with the long, really smooth blonde hair, and I know my hair looks smooth, but that's because it's blow dried, but I had the frizzy hair, didn't know how to straighten my hair yet, so I feel it was those two things, my school lunches early on, and then also I didn't look like the other girls I had grown up with in my schools, because it's a very small town, so you go to school with the same people throughout your entire life, basically.
If you could tell your younger self something that you know now to kind of help her get through those difficult years, what would you say? Because I would have slapped my face.
I think I would tell myself that those years of your life, I don't want to say they're insignificant, but you're going to look back at them and see them as such a small portion of the amazing life that you lead. And also that
there's more.
there's
more
so
than
much more
other
substance to you than all those people that you look to wishing you looked like. So I think, I would say those two things, like really like don't be kind of like ashamed of who you are, be more confident because you have a lot to be confident about. You're definitely someone who stands out from the crowd, and I think it gets you further in life than all the people that were around you at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you hope that EAS accomplishes in the future?
I really hope it continues to expand and just be that space for girls who feel like out of place. Because I think a lot of us grow up, like I grew up, like feeling very out of place because you don't have that community of like Arab girls or any kind of girl of color that grows up with those same like cultural barriers or those same like cultural experiences that are a bit different that no one really understands, and just feel like at home in a space outside of like your parents' home. So that's what I hope. I hope it continues to expand. I hope that people remember, you know, why we were started in the first place and hold on to that, because I think the second people forget that, that's when the space will kind of start to dismantle. And yeah, I just want it to be a space where people find solace and people find comfort.
Yeah.
And if it ever strays away from like being that space, then I don't want it to be around, you know, because it's like something I created to like make people feel good. So I don't want anyone to like ever have a bad experience.
Right. Well, I had a great experience in EAS. Some of my closest girlfriends are from the organization, and it really sort of helped me develop into the person that I am today, and certainly is one of the inspirations behind this particular series, Single Arab Female. So thank you, Lulu. And thanks for being on. We'll definitely have you on again soon. Until then, we'll chat to you guys later, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. But before we go, actually, how do people get connected to EAS, and how would they get connected to you if they have more questions?
Okay, so to get connected to EAS, you can visit epsilonalphasigma.org. We have a Join the Sisterhood tab, and that's where people would fill out kind of interest for expansion. So for 2019-2020, we're not currently expanding, but in the future we will be. Contacting me directly, Rula Othman at epsilonalphasigma.org is my email, or my Instagram is just my first and last name.
And you can also follow all of our channels for EAS.
Yeah.
We have an individual channel for every chapter, and you can follow us on the national EAS Instagram, which is at EAS.
It's Epsilon Alpha Sigma INC is the national Instagram. So follow that, and if you go to our following side within that page, you'll see all of our chapter pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. See you next
time.
Bye.